Hey everyone, my name's Chris Driver. I am a self-professed comic book nerd, and I'm going to talk about the science behind the X-Men. So since X-Men is a pretty broad term, I mean there are literally hundreds upon hundreds of X-Men, I'm just going to talk about three of the most recognizable ones. First is Cyclops, who can absorb solar energy and then redirect it as powerful blasts out of his eyes. And there's Storm, who can control the very weather itself, and my all-time favorite Marvel character, Magneto, the master of magnetism. However, first I think it's important to discuss just what mutation and evolution really is, and what it means in the Marvel Universe. Evolution starts when a member of a species undergoes a random mutation. Most of the time these mutations are unimportant or unnoticeable. Some can even be harmful. But sometimes a mutation occurs that creates something amazing. It becomes something so beneficial to the species that eventually, over millions of years, all of the members that didn't have this trait have simply died off, making this trait dominant. This process is called natural selection. Now in the Marvel Universe, natural selection is found in the form of an X gene. It is an extra gene randomly appearing among humans that is becoming more and more prevalent, until the Scarlet Witch alters reality to eradicate the X gene in a fit of madness during the House of M saga. But that's a story for another day. In the Marvel Universe, the X gene works by producing a protein that in turn produces chemical signals throughout the body, inducing mutations on other genes. It's essentially one giant, glorious chemical train wreck. And this chemical train wreck in turn produces some pretty fantastic powers. So, right now, I'd like to talk about these powers and just see how far we are scientifically from actually having something like this happen. And I'd like to start with Cyclops.
Energy blast, huh? Here's one from a pro.
Now, for those of you who don't know, Cyclops is the leader of the X-Men, and he has the ability to project concussive beams from his eyes that are powerful enough to destroy small mountains at full blast. The blast comes from his mutant ability of absorbing solar energy and redirecting it from his eyes. Unfortunately, due to a traumatic head injury he suffered as a child, he is unable to turn off his abilities, requiring him to wear special ruby quartz visors that harmlessly neutralize the beam when not in use and allows him to control the ferocity of the beam. Now, I'm not sure I can verify the science behind the solar energy or the ruby quartz. However, the ability to project a laser biologically has been discovered to be more than science fiction. Lasers are created by first amplifying light through what's called a gain medium, and then concentrated into a tight beam through a system of mirrors, or perhaps an ocular cavity. Until now, typically gain mediums were created through non-biological objects such as crystals, making a biologic beam impossible. However, recently scientists were able to create a gain medium with enhanced green fluorescent protein, or GFP, which for those of you marine biologists at home is the same substance that gives a jellyfish its luminosity. They engineered human embryonic kidney cells to produce GFP and then placed a single cell between two mirrors. When they fed the cell pulses of blue light, the cell in turn actually created a visible directional laser beam. Now, according to one of the physicists, Seo Kyun-yoon of Harvard Medical School, the width of the laser beam is tiny and fairly weak in its brightness compared to traditional lasers. Hey, that's still better than nothing. It may not be concussive redirected solar energy, but it's a step in the right direction. Now, since we're discussing leaders of the X-Men, I think it's time we discuss their secondary leader, Storm.
I summon the full power of the storm! Arctic cold will cool their ardor. Wind, heed my command!
Now, certainly Storm is one of the most powerful X-Men, enough so that she's even in second command of the team. And why shouldn't she be? She can smite an enemy with a lightning bolt or eradicate entire armies with a hurricane. Now, the lightning bolt is pretty easy to justify. We humans have been working with electricity for years. Being able to control it artificially or even biologically through an X gene wouldn't be too difficult to explain. The real question is storms, rain, and wind. Can man even control such things? Now, a few years ago, the answer probably would have been no. However, scientists are currently working on the development of a process called cloud seeding, which truly could make weather manipulation a reality, just on a bit of a larger scale. The process involves releasing substances into a cloud that can function as cloud condensation or ice nuclei, therefore altering the microphysical processes within the cloud. Through this process, it's possible for scientists to create rain, hail, sleet, snow, or even stop hurricanes from forming. Of course, it's currently in the early stages of testing, and it is on a much larger scale. But one day we truly could have someone flying through the sky propelling themselves by wind currents. Now, we've covered weather manipulation, but how about a different kind of manipulation? Electromagnetic manipulation.
You dare oppose me? Your most powerful weapons shall destroy you.
Growing up in a concentration camp, a young Erich Lenscher, now known as Magneto, learned early on that he had the gift of controlling metal. It wasn't until he was a little older that he learned the full nature of his powers. It wasn't the metal he controlled, it was the electromagnetic waves. By manipulating the electromagnetic waves of the Earth, he could do anything. He could levitate, create force fields, control metal, and even influence minds. And as far-fetched as it may sound, this ability isn't too far from reality. Frankly, the science is there. In terms of mind control, new studies in warfare have found that the mind of the enemy can be manipulated by electromagnetism due to the electric currents running through our brains. This means that someone who could manipulate magnetism could, in fact, make friends and influence people through less than wholesome means. Levitation is also very possible. It's actually based on diamagnetism, where an object generates a magnetic field that is in opposition to the surrounding magnetic fields, causing the object to be repelled from the ground. The Nijmegen High Magnetic Field Laboratory in the Netherlands has actually used this technology to successfully levitate frogs, bugs, and strawberries. An interesting combination, yes, I know. This means humans can't be far behind. A similar science applies to the electromagnetic force field, which uses diamagnetism to repel objects from the source. As far as controlling metal, it's hard to say for certainty what the extent is of the control we would have. However, there have been successful surgeries involving individuals inserting magnets surrounded by silicone into their fingertips, which allowed them to pull in and repel magnetic objects, as well as feeling out magnetic waves in the atmosphere. Not exactly natural or biologic, but it shows the science is there, meaning that a real-life Magneto could exist. Now the only question is, would you really be willing to go that far? So there you have it, folks. Though all these powers may seem a bit far-fetched now, we must remember the miracles of science in the world around us. The world is built on science and mutation. Man evolved from primates thousands of years earlier, while the giraffe sprouted a neck that seems almost impossibly long. We've created flying machines, and the internet, we even landed a man on the moon. Nature is constantly changing, and science is constantly expanding. Nothing is impossible. To quote Stan Lee, "Nuff said."